Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna sit down.
Citizens of the world, wherever you are, wherever you're going, we're glad you're here. This is Michael James with another edition of the Live from the Heartland show. This one is for the week of June 19th, and we are recording it a couple days early, Wednesday, June 17th, up here in Chicago's 49th Ward. Our guest today will be Rus Bradburd. He's been on the show many times. He's been a basketball coach, a professor. He's working on a book about Syrian refugee kids in Gaelic football in Northern Ireland. And we're going to talk about Northern Ireland. We'll be joined by our sports historian, Gordon Thomson, talking a little bit about, I'm not sure what, but something to do with sports and history, and probably a little bit of the current World Cup. And we're going to finish off the show with Vicky Guy talking about an event that goes on for Boogie Gonzalez, who was an early violence interrupter and was killed in Pilsen years ago. So with all that said, a couple of things I'd like to call your attention to. There's a lot of protesting going over in Albania. People may not know a lot about Albania, but it has some islands that are really environmental treasures. And Jared Kushner and other parties are trying to build a resort there. People are demonstrating throughout the country, and they are really looking at more than just this issue, but the whole question of democracy in Albania. Trump is still pushing election subversion. We do have a supposed deal coming up with Iran about the war, but Trump has already said that if he doesn't like how Iran implements the preliminary agreement, he may start the war up again. And as we know, there's been a lot of gerrymandering going on around the country. And I saw in the New York Times a report on how black voters in 3 southern states, that would be Alabama, Tennessee, and Louisiana, have done things. For example, District 6 in Louisiana was split across 5 different districts, and that was a black district. So with all that said, we'll take a short musical break, and we'll be back with Rus Bradburd, who has just arrived from Northern Ireland, from Belfast. He's in Chicago, heading on to El Paso for basketball in the Barrio, where I will join him this weekend for a basketball camp right on the edge of the border for little kids. Be right back.
El derecho de vivir, poeta Ho Chi Minh, que golpea de Vietnam a toda la humanidad. Ningún cañón borrará el surco de tu arrozal, el derecho de vivir en paz. Indochina es el lugar más allá del ancho mar, donde revientan la flor con genocidio y napalm.
Welcome back to Live from the Heartland for the week of June 19th, and I'm still Michael James up here in Chicago's 49th Ward. Our next guest is someone who's no stranger to the show. He's the one and only Rus Bradburd. He comes out of Amundsen High School, North Park College, went off to coach basketball at UTEP and New Mexico State. He is the author of a number of wonderful books, and he has just arrived in Chicago from Northern Ireland, where he's been working on a book about Gaelic football and immigrant kids. And we'll get to talk a little bit about that. But what I wanted to do was to get Rus to talk a little bit about Northern Ireland, the troubles of the past and the troubles of the present day. Good morning to you, Rus.
Hi, Michael. And I'd be remiss because of my friends from Von Steuben. I went to Von Steuben. But
I am so sorry. Hell, you got to edit that out.
Oh, it doesn't matter. But my career was undistinguished. It wouldn't matter. It's good to see you, Michael.
Well, we're both going off to El Paso tomorrow, and we're going to be at Basketball in the Barrio, which is a wonderful camp right near the Mexican-U.S. border. Kids 6 to 11 learn basketball skills, but a lot about border culture, including they learn a little bit about chess, etc. So we'll be seeing a lot of each other, Russ, but let's hit it on Northern Ireland. Tell us a little bit about the troubles, past and present.
Well, from approximately 1968 until the Good Friday Agreement in 1998, nationalists and loyalists, sometimes called Catholics and Protestants, were at sort of a tit-for-tat retributive civil war, and claimed nearly 4,000 lives during the 30-year period. The nationalists would like to be part of the Republic of Ireland. Of course, Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom, and that had been set up by the Brits back in around 1921. Recently, so the troubles stopped mostly. The violence pretty much stopped. Belfast is now the safest city in the United Kingdom and one of the safest cities in all of Europe, after being the most violent major city in all of Europe. But recently, there's been an anti-immigrant push. And while Northern Ireland remains 97% white, there's been a strong pushback from the loyalist side. The loyalists are very anti-immigrant, and the nationalist side is generally pro-immigrant. And of course, these are vague generalizations, but I think pretty accurate.
Well, what's going on today is I think some unity between the two sides in opposing immigrants and immigration. There was a fellow from an African fellow who was legally in the United Kingdom and was able to go to Ireland, to Northern Ireland, and he was involved with the stabbing of someone, and that's turned into riots that have been going on for days.
Yeah, just to be clear, I'm only talking about Northern Ireland now, which is, again, not part of Ireland. And so in general, in general, the loyalist side is very anti-immigrant. And so what happened was these guys were neighbors and they knew each other, but a fight ensued. And it's a very graphic and ugly video. It looks like the initial reports were saying that the Sudanese man was trying to behead the Belfast local, which isn't what, he had a steak knife with no handle. So it was ugly and there was blood, a lot of blood, and the victim has lost an eye. But the perpetrator was from Sudan, but had gone from Parece to Dublin and then showed up in Northern Ireland claiming asylum. But it's not just like it is here, Michael. I imagine, I don't have the statistics, but immigrants aren't any more likely to commit crimes than the locals who have grown up here. And one of the things that's happened is this has all been painted as, look what the immigrants are doing. They tried to kill this guy. But it's an unusual case. The interesting part of the story, and slightly related to my book, is that a father was coming home from hurling practice with his boy. His boy was in hurling. Hurling is sort of like lacrosse. There's a stick that's sort of like a hockey stick that they use. And it's an ancient Irish game that goes very fast. It's supposed to be the fastest game in the world. Well, this father was coming home with his son, saw the assault taking place on the streets of Belfast, and ran over and whacked the assailant on the head with a hurley stick and stopped the attack. And but in the 2 or 3 days that followed, loyalists, many of them teenagers, were out marching, not really marching in the street, just tearing things up, burning things down, starting buses on fire. A $500,000 emissions-free bus got burned to the ground. And I had gone, I was there, of course, at the time before I came back for this basketball camp. I rode my bike twice. I rode my bike up to see, because I'd heard there's going to be a demonstration here and a demonstration there, but they're not demonstrations at all. In my mind, I don't know how you are, Michael, but in my mind, I think a demonstration means there's going to be a guest speaker and he's going to rally the crowd and they're going to chant together and maybe someone would sing a song. There's no demonstration. It's just the demonstration is we're going to burn things to the ground. And they've been pulling immigrants out of their homes and burning their homes down. Doesn't matter if you're Sudanese or Philippine or Romanian. The the thugs are going to pull you out of the street and burn your home to the ground. So there's been quite a few people burned out of their home and now looking for a place to live. What's interesting about this is in the past, all of the violence was Catholic against Protestant, or a more accurate way to say it is nationalist against loyalists. But now the loyalists have turned their anger not to the Catholics, but to the immigrants.
Yeah, some of the reporting I saw said that there was that both Catholics and Protestants were involved, but I understand what you're saying.
I'm not sure what reporting you're seeing. That's not true at all.
Good. That's good to hear.
Yeah, that's not true. Now, 2 years ago, when there was a riot in Belfast, and there were people waving the tricolor flag, so the rumor got started. Look, the Irish don't want the immigrants here either, and there have been some anti-immigrant riots in the Republic, but it's a completely different issue because in Northern Ireland, although the loyalists are loyal supposedly to the British government, it's the British government that's setting the immigration policy. And some of this goes back to Brexit. If you'll remember, the United Kingdom voted to leave the European Union. And part of the push behind leaving the European Union is we don't want all these new immigrants coming in. So what happened after Brexit, Michael, it's kind of funny if it wasn't so sad. What happened after Brexit passed, it became almost impossible to immigrate to the United Kingdom if you were within the European Union. So instead, they opened the door up to people of color. It was the Syrian war refugees, the Sudanese, and that's what the anti-immigrant push is for. The anti-immigrant push, they don't care about the Polish or the Swedes coming or the Ukrainians coming. They want the people of color out of there. And I think that's what scares people. And I think it's the same thing here. I mean, look we've made it so the only immigrants who are coming in are white people from South Africa. And when you see people, the ICE agents in Albany Park, where I grew up, when you see ICE agents there, they're not pulling the Polish workers out or the Irish workers out. They're also here often past their visa. It's always people of color, particularly Spanish-speaking people.
Well, it's, we have an anti-immigrant thrust in this country, certainly fanned by Trump. And in England and Great Britain, you have it by Nigel Farage and others. When I was visiting you in 2005, when you were coaching the Tralee Tigers, we were in Tralee, and I was really kind of impressed, a little bit surprised by the number of non-white people that I saw and the number of immigrants. And it really seemed kind of wonderful that people were being welcomed and, this was going on. But there seems to be some shift in certainly in Europe. I'm not sure about it, what's going on in Ireland and Northern Ireland. Clearly in Northern Ireland, there's an issue.
Yes, and Northern Ireland in particular. I wanted, for me, just for my limited expertise, I think I better stay in Northern Ireland. But I know that I've been going back and forth to Northern Ireland on and off since 2012. So I've lived over there now for nearly 4 years total. And I can tell you that Belfast looks very different now. There are people of color waiting at bus stops. There's women in hijabs pushing strollers with children in them, or they're driving. If you get an Uber driver, he's almost certainly going to be an immigrant. So Northern Ireland, particularly Belfast, does look very different. It's still 97% white, but yet the difference is visible. For selfish reasons, boy, the restaurants are a lot better. It used to be pretty dull and, is sort of flavorless and sort of typical British food. Forgive me for saying so if there's any British food aficionados out there. But now there's Middle Eastern restaurants and Korean restaurants and African grocery stores. And so I think in general, it's been a good thing.
Talk a little bit about the work on your books, because the book is about immigrants and it's a positive. You've been on the show talking about it before. People can find it if they look up your name under the YouTube site. But what's your sense about things in general and how that book is coming along?
Yeah. So the premise of the book, no one knows this better than you do, Michael, is that sports is often at the forefront of racial and social progress. And, you can look at Jackie Robinson or Muhammad Ali or Megan Rapinoe. or Maya Moore, the WNBA player who quit to work to improve the criminal justice system. But in Northern Ireland, there's a strange phenomenon now where there's a push. There's children of color are playing Gaelic football and hurling, which are traditionally Catholic-dominated nationalist sports, and they're welcoming these children into this strange not strange, but unusual and unique subculture of Gaelic sports. And so Gaelic sports have been around for a long time, but they've always been associated with a pride in being Irish, not British. Whereas a British person might be more likely to play rugby or cricket or that kind of thing. But the Catholic kids often are playing Gaelic sports. And so it's happening now, but rather than it being Roberto Clemente, who, or Muhammad Ali, who are in their 20s and 30s when these are children. And what's happening is it's probably the same thing that maybe let's just pretend that your grandfather came from England or Scotland, Michael James, and he decided he stuck your father into Little League Baseball. He didn't grow up in Scotland playing Little League Baseball, but it was a way to assimilate and a way to be part of the community. And so that's what's happening now is the children of war refugees are now in a town that used to be extremely violent. If you would have said to someone, if you'd have said to someone 30 years ago, I'm fleeing this war, I'm going to move to Belfast, they would have said, no, don't move to Belfast. It's very violent there. Well, now Belfast is very safe. So it's ironic that war refugees are going there. And one of the things that I've found from working on this book is that the people welcoming the refugees who have left the war are invariably tied to the violence themselves. The people who have been affected by violence are much more likely to help someone else who's been affected by violence. And I think it's true all the way around. My wife says that rape hotlines and sexual abuse hotlines are completely populated by women who have been victims of sexual assault or rape. And that there is something about suffering that makes you more empathetic to, it's why I don't think, Elon Musk is against empathy, because there's nobody like Elon Musk, the richest man in the world. And by the way, Elon Musk was tweeting the places where the demonstrations in Belfast, which were really riots, but he was tweeting about where the riots were going to take place if you wanted to join in.
I had heard that Elon Musk not only was letting people know where these demonstrations, so-called demonstrations, were being held, but also, posting a lot of anti-immigrant information on his site. He's a pretty terrible guy.
Yes, I mean, well, we could talk about Musk forever, I suppose, but so there is the Niall Farage's Reform Party in the UK is a fast-growing party, and there are people, and as you know, Michael, some people do have legitimate immigration concerns. Like I'm concerned if someone comes over and they're not paying into Social Security, and what's going to happen to them when they get older. And there's there's no question in America our immigration system is in need of there hasn't been a law passed in 35 years. But the funny part about Northern Ireland is the people opposed to the immigrants coming in are exactly the people who voted for Brexit to happen. What Brexit did, it was not what those people anticipated. It stopped European immigrants from coming, and there was a big increase in Syrian and Sudanese and Nigerian and that kind of thing.
What's your sense of Brexit? Is it going to, you've been living over there off and on for a number of years, and during this Brexit period, are people down on it? Has there been anything that's going to keep it going? Will it be reversed?
I don't know if they can reverse it, but I think if they did the vote again today, it would lose badly. I think it has not been, especially if you were anti-immigrant and you only wanted white people in the United Kingdom. Well, Brexit turned out to be a terrible mistake because immigrants of color came in mass after that it actually increased. And so the intended, I think what those people intended to vote for is exactly the opposite of what they got, which is, I don't know if it's funny exactly, but it's ironic, I suppose. But there is getting to be quite the mood of, last summer they were burning immigrants, mannequins, burning them in effigy. Is a boat of immigrants on top of a bonfire and things like that. So there is an ugly side. And I think one of the things that's happened is the loyalists, as the Catholics as their lives improved after the Troubles have ended, the Protestants sort of take that personally in the same way that I think sometimes working class Americans think, well, if an immigrant comes from Mexico, it's going to take my job, which is demonstrably false. But but if you're scared of people of color, I think for me, Michael, I think you're the same way. As for me, immigrants were always interesting. I don't want to live in an area that's all exactly the same. That seems boring to me. And I've always seen I think you're the same way. I see the world. I see the world through food. And if my cab driver happens to be from the Middle East, I always ask them, where do you go to eat Middle Eastern food? It's often I eat it at home, and they never do invite me over. But I think that I see the world through. I know about Jamaica because of Bob Marley, and I know about Nigeria because of Babatunde, and I know about I think that music and literature and food have always been a window into other cultures. But as I said before, and very well, is that oftentimes it's sports that's the window. I think there's all kinds of white kids around America that have Michael Jordan posters on their wall, and they'll have Jalen Brunson posters up soon. And in general, as kids, we don't say, I want a white guy on the wall. I don't want a black guy on the wall. That's something the kids learn as they get older.
Russ, tell us a little bit more briefly about how far along you are in this book. Are you still doing interviews? Are you writing? You got a publisher, an agent? What's going on with you? I know you've had. Well, it
is out with an agent. I haven't had an agent for a long time. When my gun violence book with the Chicago Review Press, that was completely unagented. But it is floating with an agent. But the problem is, I want the story to be over so I can finish. And then if a riot happens, or like a Syrian grocery store got burned out for the second time. Well, I've already written about the first time the Syrian grocery store got burned to the ground, but now they went back and burned it down again last week. And so now I can't ignore that because I'm still, here I am. So I would like to, I wish I was finished, but the agent is going to be shopping it around soon. And if I have to add an addendum or an epilogue or something like that, so be it.
We've got just a couple minutes left. How about sharing with our listeners and our viewers just what basketball in the barrio is? I've been going down there for 20 some years. If people make a donation to this show, they get a copy of my book called En la Frontera, which is about the basketball camp, as well as El Paso and Juarez. But you've been doing this camp for a long time. It's gotten a lot of notoriety, a lot of kids over the years. A lot of people come back not only first as a camper, but they come back as a counselor. And then they have kids and they come. It's a wonderful scene. Just tell our viewers and listeners about it.
What we're up to, Mike, I include you in the organization, but what we're up to is it's for $1, we're letting kids from Segundo Barrio, which at one time was the poorest per capita neighborhood in America. It's now in the bottom 10, but it's an incredibly poor neighborhood, but also a very safe neighborhood and a very welcoming neighborhood. And for $1, the kids get a T-shirt, a basketball, 2 bilingual children's books, a harmonica, a chess set, and a poster. And so, but it's 6 to 10-year-old girls and boys, and we mix in pride and border culture. So there's folklorico dancers and norteño trios playing music, and storytellers, and we've got the firemen are coming back this year to demonstrate fire safety. So it's really an educational camp more than a basketball camp, but it's a way to keep it alive. There was a man named Rocky Galarza who trained kids for free in boxing for many years in El Paso, and when he died, we decided to stop charging. We were charging $20 before that, and when Rocky died in 1997, we decided we're going to lower the cost to $1 so everyone can afford it.
Well, it's a wonderful camp, and it's a wonderful example of what sports can do, along with a little bit of music and literature. And I'll be seeing you at 8:30 in the morning at the Segundo Barrio at the center where the camp takes place, at the Armejo Center. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in person, Russ.
Great. I'll see you Friday morning. Have a good, strong cup of coffee, Michael. We need you.
I've had a couple. I'm getting ready.
No, not today.
Brother.
I mean on Friday. Okay. Okay. Bye-bye.
And some donuts and the stuff in the who knows what people show up with food. Sometimes there's tamales and it's good food. Good food.
That's more part of the border culture than the donuts. I'll see you Friday.
All right, brother. And everybody
Thank
else,
you.
stay tuned. After a little bit of music, we'll be back with Gordon Thomson, and we'll have a little bit of sports history from him. Be right back. Citizens of the world, welcome back to Live from the Heartland for the week of June 19th. And I have to say that while we've been recording this show a couple days early, my daughter, Casey Blue, just gave birth to a baby boy just a few minutes ago. So I'm pretty elated and pretty happy. And congratulations to Casey Blue and Matt Marienthal. I can't wait to see the kid. Okay, rest up, get ready. Going to be a lot of stuff going on. Our next guest is the one and only Gordon Thomson, no stranger to my family, no stranger to the listeners and viewers of this show, former track coach at a number of places, including Loyola and DePaul. Gordon has emerged as the Riot from the Heartland sports historian. And I asked him to put together on a monthly basis some kind of history about a figure or an event in sport. And I asked him just as we came on the air, or got ready to come on the air, so to speak, in other words, record it, what he had for today. And he told me we're going to talk about Pele. So take it away, Gordon Thomson, and hello to you.
Hey, congratulations, Michael, on your new grandchild. Baby boy, healthy baby is always a blessing in this world. We all need great people coming into this world, and we know that with Casey Blue's love and Paige and yourself, you guys hit a home run once again. Let's hope for the best. Yeah, way to go. Hey, I want to talk about what's going on with the world's most popular sport, World Cup.
Who says it's the more popular than American football or basketball?
Yeah, by far. Well, actually, American football is not the most popular sport in U.S. By viewership. And a couple years ago, it was dominated by something that you would near and dear. NASCAR is the number one sport in U.S. for viewership.
Those guys are something else driving around that fast. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah. World Cup. Hey, that's what is cooking right now, and it's got the world's attention. We are the guests, us and Canada and the country of Mexico are the host countries for this 2026 World Cup. Started in 1930, which is the first one. And when the last time the U.S. had a successful round was the opening one. That was USA made the semifinals that year, but that's as best as we ever got. We finished third in 1930, but we ain't going to get there this year. We ain't going to been there in the past, maybe in the future with these hotshots, Reina and others. But I don't have much faith in this year's squad, USA squad. But
they beat Paraguay by 4-1. That's the last.
That was a nice game.
Yeah.
And I got to hand it to both sides. It seems like this year's World Cup is the fouls are not as aggressive. The fouls are gentlemanly there, and it's watched a lot more closer by the video officials, and so they know they clean up their act. It's pretty cool. And so you let the cat out of the bag.
I did. I apologize for for surprising everybody, but I did. I have been watching some of these soccer games along with the White Sox games, although they did lose last night to the Yankees. And there's a lot of question who was the greatest ever. So Pele's name comes up, and being. They just brought in soccer at my high school in 1959. So I didn't grow up with soccer like a lot of the people since then. So the only name I really know is Pele. And
well, he came on exactly when you were a high school senior. 1958 is when he was, what year in high school were you in 58?
58, I would have been a senior. No, a junior. I graduated in June of 1960.
Well, that's when Pele became a world star, was 1958. And he burst on the scene with that World Cup, 1958 World Cup. And Brazil won it all. But he, as a 17-year-old in that 1958 World Cup, became a superstar, known for dramatic dribbling, known for spectacular play, a miracle dribbler. Throughout his career, he really became the magic man. And so that's why through spectacular play that he became the first really global superstar in sports before Muhammad Ali, but a global superstar. So, and it really became a big deal. So Brazil has won the World Cup more than anybody, 5 times. Pele won it 3 times, with the help of Brazil. Actually won the 1962. He was a little bit injured, played just a little bit. But 1970 was probably his best World Cup win, and won the Golden Ball, the so-called Ballon d'Or, which is basically the most MVP of the tournament. And the year MVP, the Golden Ball Award. So he's a hot shot right from day one. Even Muhammad Ali revered him as the greatest. So
what do you know about him growing up and where he came from and what his life was like and what led him to soccer?
Well, his old man, his dad was a soccer player, and his dad was festooned with the famous one name, I can't remember, Radandino or something like that. But he was a good enough soccer player that he had the one name nickname, which is common in Brazil, which is pretty cool. And so his father was a soccer player, but really he grew up in poverty in Brazil and was playing as a child with not a ball, but a sock stuffed with newspapers. And that kind of thing is exactly what Hank Aaron grew up in, playing not with a ball, but with bottle caps thrown at him and had to hit bottle caps, which would change in the air. A sock filled with newspapers is going to change in the air. It's not going to have regular flight. That is an asset of being able to grow up with something that is not normal, oblong. So just a miracle player. But yesterday we had our own contemporary phenomenal in Messi. Some people, the youngsters, think that Messi from Argentina, Lionel Messi, is the greatest of all time. He scored a hat trick, 3 goals against Algeria yesterday. Anytime you score 3 goals in a game, that's big stuff.
What is a hat trick actually? What does that mean? 3 goals?
Oh, it does mean 3 goals. And it's funny you should ask. I had no idea what the origin of that phrase was.
It's in hockey too. I don't know
it's
what
in hockey. Anything that you can do 3 times. It's in hockey. It's in in everything basically. So the derivation of that hat trick term in sports comes from 1858 in England. A cricket player, 3 attempts, hit 3 wickets, and he was 3 for 3 essentially, and that termed a hat trick. Why? because they created a donation in the stands. People pitching in money to buy him a brand new hat. I guess it was a brand new hat back in those days. It must have been a nice hat. I hope so. So anyhow, that's the story of the hat trick. So getting 3, that's what Lionel Messi did yesterday. He scored 3 goals. And he's got the most, or equals with that, he's got equals the most goals in World Cup history, which is 16 total goals over 4 World Cups. So that's pretty good stuff unto himself. So
how long is this World Cup going on?
It's going to go on the rest of this month. So right now we're in the match stage, or the group stage. There's 48 countries invited to this thing, largest field ever. So from this match phase, which each group is down of 4 or 5 countries, then we're going to go to the round of 32. Then we're going to go to the round of 16. Then we're going to go to the round of 8 and then the round of 4. So it takes a while. And each game is fairly taxing on the players. That's why there's this new hydration break. We're about 22 minutes into the game. We're getting a water break. And it's, good for hydrate. It gives everybody a little bit of a break. So I think even the play itself can be more active after that break. So I think it's a good move.
Do you have a prediction on who might win it all?
Argentina is defending champion with Messi. He got the golden ball last time. That's 2022. They look pretty good. Number 1 ranked right now was France up until a couple weeks ago, but with Germany scoring 5 or 6 goals against their Germany is now ranked number 1 in the world. I tell you, it's always up for grabs. But you can't predict. You can predict the strongest teams, and that it'll be France with Mbappe and Argentina with Messi, and Norway's looking good with their hot shot too. So it's whoever, like in any sport, whoever's hot at the moment. But you got to be continuously hard, parse out your energy.
Well, I've been watching it. I watched France yesterday, and I don't know who I was rooting for, but it's it really, if you get into it and you watch it, it's really an amazing game. I mean, just the footwork. I'm remembering in high school when we used to all be slapping each other in the showers after football practice. There was a kid in my high school from Brazil. And Elio Soares, I think his name was. And when that stuff started going on, he used his feet and his legs. And I remember I was really impressed. I had never thought about the skills you might develop with your legs in fight.
Well, you want to really enjoy yourself, watch the next World Cup on Telemundo, not on U.S. feed, regular Fox. So Telemundo, the announcership is phenomenal. It's the best, and it's so exciting. Whereas you watch the U.S. announcers, it's like a funeral procession. So it's horrible. But if I got to watch the U.S. guys on U.S. feed, I'll mute it. But if I'm going to watch Telemundo, I got the full sound, and I really love it. It's enjoyable. Telemundo.
Yeah, Gordon, it's really great talking to you, and I'll be talking to you real soon. So you have a great day, and thanks for sharing all this information for all us new to soccer and understanding how it works and who's been in it and what's going on. I'll be
great sport. Congratulations, Michael, on your new baby.
My grandson. Okay, we'll see. And everybody else, stay tuned here on the left end of your dial or however you're getting live from the Heartland, be it on YouTube, Can TV, Lumpen Radio, WLUW, Apple Podcast. We're here for you, and we look forward to hearing from you at the Live from the Heartland show at gmail.com. We'll be right back with our next guest, Vicky Guy, and she's going to talk to us about a violence interrupter named Boogie Gonzalez, who passed away a number of years ago and is being honored with an event yearly now here in Chicago. Be right back.
¿Qué te parece? way too. When she needs to ramble, nothing else that will do. What do you think, Cholita?
¿Qué te parece, Cholita? ¿Qué te parece? ¿Qué te parece, Cholita? ¿Qué te parece?
My baby needs to ramble. She needs that open road. She'll drift from town to town, as long as she's feeling low. You know that's right, baby.
¿Qué te parece, Cholita? ¿Qué te parece?
Citizens of the world, welcome back to Live from the Heartland for the week of June 19th. And to round out our show, we are honored to have Vicky Guy coming on, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about a fellow named David Boogie Gonzalez, who was a violence interrupter or de-escalator. And good day to you, Vicky.
Hello. Thank you, Michael. I'm actually the president of the Gonzalez Foundation. We created this foundation for troubled youth and giving scholarships. And so with this event we're having on June 20th for my uncle. So David Boogie Gonzalez was my uncle, and I was brought into this pretty much this initiative from my aunt who wanted to recreate a mural for David Boogie Gonzalez. So little history on who David Boogie Gonzalez was. He was the first de-escalator in Chicago and pretty much architect every blueprint now what nonprofits like New Life go into the community, pretty much grab the youth, giving them an opportunity or outlet that they didn't have or don't have. So pretty much what he done was grab troubled youth, pretty much inspired by him because he was a gang member, an ex-gang member. And back in the 70s, there was early 70s, late 60s, there was a lot of violence happening. And from what I hear, again, I wasn't born then, but from what I hear, it was very, very tumultuous, and it was very rough to live on the inner city streets of Chicago. And so what happened was my other uncle came back from Vietnam, went to Vietnam, came back, kind of was PTSD, wasn't really the same, but he didn't die in Vietnam. He died on the city streets of Chicago. So this is what sparked an ignition with pretty much a light and fire with David Boogie Gonzalez. My uncle was, seeing that happen to his brother, his older brother, and he decided to change his life around. And within so many years that he had, early years that he had, he did a lot of change. And he died actually, ironically, by gang violence. Not intended target, but it was a drive-by shooting by Harrison Park. And they were not intending to shoot at him, but ended up getting, 2 people were shot. He was one that actually died from the shooting.
And I think we're joined here by Tanya. Is that your sister?
Yes, my sister. She's actually the vice president of the Gonzalez Foundation.
Hello, Tanya. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
We're good. So tell us, either one of you, tell us a little bit more about David Boogie Gonzalez and what you remember or know about him. What I know from looking up some stuff and hearing a little bit from you was that he was one of the early de-escalators of violence. He was an ex-gang member who unfortunately was mistakenly killed in a shooting. And we have put together, you all have put together an organization and an event in his honor. So fill us in a little bit on more about Boogie, if you can, Pilsen, and what you both know about the situation then and now. And perhaps then we'll get to the details about the event on Saturday.
As a continued legacy, for us as an extension of him, we want to continue his name and continue his legacy in regards to, being a peace activist in a community and continuing on with that, like, legacy as well. And then also creating a safe space for the community where they have a place, a safe space, to actually to meet and to have, whatever picnics, basketball tournaments, what have you, in Troop Park, and to just commemorate him with an actual a march, and just commemorating him again and what he initially, when he passed away, and how the community came together and they formed together a peace march in his name to continue that. So I think that that's the importance of this for us in wanting to continue this, his name in this whole process and this whole program that is in place. We have annual commemoration for him. So overall, this
is the third one you're going to do?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And tell me where it takes place and what time. It's on Saturday, I believe, the 20th. And where will it be taking place? And what will be happening?
So it will be taking place in Pilsen, Troop Park, which we're in the final phase of trying to change the name in honor of him. We're still in those phases right now, but this is the third annual event because this was a 3-phase project. The first phase of this project was to have a march, which we did the first year. We marched down Pilsen in honor of him. So this is the day he passed. This was more to remember of who he was, not that he passed. It was more of celebration of life and that his life goes on. And so this is why we pretty much mark it and saying, Boogie lives, because he does live within several communities that he pretty much the branches and the roots have spread across the world. Like there's so many people that come back to us and tell us that thank you for keeping this legacy going. People we've never met, and they come up to us and they said, the reason I do the work I do is because of him. And it was ripple effects that he had in several communities. And so the first phase again was the march. We did down 18th from Harrison Park, from where he was assassinated, and then walked down to Troop Park, which was a very successful event. And then we did the unveiling of the street naming. So there's a street naming on 18th and Troop. David Boogie Gonzalez, you can go take pictures. There's everything over there. And then the second phase of the project was getting the mural. So like I said, my aunt wanted this. It all started with restoring old mural. The project didn't go according to how we wanted, so we scratched it and we found a new wall, a bigger wall. And we started off from scratch, and it was a 3-story, actually even better, and explains everything of who he is. I don't think there's even a mural in Pilsen that actually tells a story, and this tells a story. And we got so many positive feedback from people within the community, and looking him up after the fact and understanding like, oh, I never even knew about, even the kids. We had so many people come inside the park that never came in the park while we were doing this mural in the dead of winter. My muralist, who was actually one of the youth that was impacted by David Boogie Gonzalez, and decided Boogie found, I guess, his innate creativity and tapped into him. And so that's why he became an artist and a muralist. And so he said he would want to do this. And that's what he did.
And to chime in there a little bit, because I know we didn't touch on like the history or the background and a little bit more about Boogie, right? So just as a little bit of background, Boogie, he was pivotal in the community with, a change maker. So he worked at the community center, Casa Salon, and was actually helping people. There were several testaments at our multiple events that we had over the years, and many people mentioning, hey, he didn't take me out of the community. I would have never been into the trades or graduated from high school. He showed me someplace different, something different. We didn't know we could even, there was an opportunity to get out of the community because it was poverty, the economic situation, as well as the gang situation. And him being a change maker and actually putting time into the community and people in the community and showing that, hey, you could make a difference in your life. You don't have to resort to violence or criminal activities or even your current economic situation. There's opportunities out there. There's opportunities for for scholarships and things like that, or even just working towards that. So that's how we initially started our nonprofit organization, through a scholarship foundation at Benito Juarez, and then it just evolved into commemorating. We want to do something and give back to the community where our parents are from, and our families.
Let me ask you, is there a way that people can get a hold of either of you to learn more? And am I correct in that it's this Saturday, I don't know what time, at 18th and Troop, at Troop Park?
Yeah, Troop Park, 1811 South Troop. It's from 10 to 3, pretty much wrapping up at 3. We will have opening up with a prayer, have food, drinks, a live DJ, Mexican folk dancers that are from a youth organization. They're coming to dance. It's a really great event. People love coming out to it. Just as soon as we started, it just has grown. And then also a mariachi band that will come in and we'll be closing out with a DJ. So come learn more. We'll be having different vendors out there to come talk about, just certain small businesses that are going around in the area.
Let me just say, if people go to Google and look up David Boogie Gonzalez, there's a lot of information and there's some articles about when he had been killed and stuff about that. Let me ask you, as we close out, is there a way that people can contact you or a website they can go to?
Yeah, yes. The GonzalezFoundation.org.
So I want to encourage you all to continue to do good in the world. The world certainly needs all the good that we all do. Keep at it. It's a rough time, but we're going to all make it better. All power to the people. Over and out till next week.
She can. Over the mountain.
Thank you for watching the Live from the Heartland show.
You got a dream
New
awaiting.
episodes air every Friday beginning at 9 a.m. Central Time.
It may not come easy, but you know you've got a friend.
Sweet Home Chicago.
I'll be by your side the entire ride. Just let me hear you say amen. Are you doing?
Audio episodes go live on WLUW Saturday 9 a.m. on the left end of your dial at 88.7 FM or streaming everywhere worldwide at WLUW.org.
Are you doing the best you can?
They're available on Apple and Spotify podcasts by looking up Live from the Heartland on either platform, and are also broadcast on Lumpen Radio Friday at 9 a.m. 105.5 FM and streaming at lumpenradio.com. I'm Michael James, and I'm glad to have been your host. Until next time, remember, do good in the world because the world needs all the good that you do, that I do, that we do together. All power to the people. Over and out.
Come to limb. Are you doing the best you can? Tell me, are you doing? Are you doing the best you can?